Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and all month long on my channel, we are working in a DIY gratitude journal. I find that when I take this whole month to go a little bit deeper into my gratitude practice, I feel so much better about everything in my life. And for me personally, the election results have been really hard this week. And not to judge anyone else's choices, but just that it's been challenging for me personally. Good morning, Barbara. And so I picked the prompt today that is about gratitude for rest, for reflection and renewal. And as we're coming into the end of the year, I was at a networking event last night and someone mentioned that we only have like 6 or 7 weeks in the year, and everyone in the room, it was like this was all women, successful women entrepreneurs and leaders, and there was this, sort of surprise, like it catches up with us. And using our gratitude practice as an opportunity for just a place to rest. And as I was thinking about the prompt this morning, I realized how much of my own rest, renewal, and reflection time happens on the page or it happens outside. And the good morning, Jen. And so the the prompt this morning, get back to my page over here, was to create a resting place in your journal. Might be a hammock, a bed of flowers, a peaceful landscape, a place where you visualize resting and renewing your energy. And so I was thinking, what could I create in my journal that would feel like this place of rest? And the thing that popped into my head was creating almost like an altar space. And it's funny because even let me get my camera changed over and get my keyboard out of the way. Having a little slower start this morning, so bear with me for just a second. All right, come on, mouse. There we go. All right. And so when I started looking at what I created yesterday, which I haven't finished yet, but I know where I'm going with it. I just got to get all the pieces together. So it felt both like this journey space, but it also felt like a place that I could come, that I could travel through, that I want to revisit. And so when I'm creating a journal like this one, I'm noticing, what is it that I need today? What is the energy that I need to connect to? And so having our journals become a different type of space, a space that we return to that becomes a little more interactive and reminds us to pause and to remember that the gratitude journal, Leslie, good morning, lovely, that the gratitude journal is not static, right? Like a lot of times we create and we fill a beautiful journal and we just stick it on the shelf. And there's a wonderful woman I follow on Instagram, OTM Academy, and Kristen Radden. She has this really fun magical playbook class. And I've been working through that class, and it's made me think differently about how I connect and interact with my journal pages, right? And so I love this one. Yesterday was about my spirit's journey, and today is about creating a space for rest. So the thing that popped into my head was, how could I create sort of a visual altar and a reminder at the same time of the thing that really helps me to rest on the page. And so I grabbed, this was happened to be already printed, one of my son Connor's gorgeous sacred circle designs. And I loved this one because there's all this sort of spaciousness here to add interactive elements to create a space of rest. And I also was looking around, I'm like, what supplies do I want to play with today? I definitely often feel that need to change things up a little bit, try different things. And so my journal is like a place that I learn, a place that I reflect, and just again, needing today in particular a little reflection and renewal time. So I'm going to start by just adding some paint. And then Kristen had this amazing idea. If you check out the hashtag magical playbook on Instagram, you'll see some really great examples of her work. She also has a YouTube channel where she has some flip throughs of some of her books. This morning, the class I was watching was all about pop ups. Like, it was just fabulous, but it got me thinking. And so, one of the things that she does is that she laminates pages so that she can stick things on and take them off. Just genius. So it gave me the idea of creating something perhaps a little bit more interactive. And so, again, I want to really honor and celebrate her for this idea. So let me get back over here to the chat and put her information in. So her name is, okay, apparently I can't type this morning, Kristen Radin. I think I'm spelling it right. And on Instagram, she's OTM Academy. Lots of fun stuff with oracle cards and just all kinds of really fun things that I really enjoy watching and be a part of. So I'm sort of jumping off of some of her ideas today to do something a little bit different here. Okay, this box needs to go away. Let's bring that box, getting everything organized. I know, me too. And I love the way she teaches. So if you've never worked with gouache, I think I'm actually going to move my journal out of the way here for a second. There are two different kinds of gouache. There's acrylic gouache and there's watercolor gouache. And my daughter loves the watercolor version of gouache. So it dries different than watercolor paint. It dries very matte and very thick. It's often used by graphic designers and illustrators in their work, and I find it tricky to work with, but I have enjoyed this. This is Holbein acrylic gouache. I just have a few colors, and I'm working on just a piece of cardstock. So we're going to see how the gouache is going to react on this, but I'm going to get this design painted up. I'm feeling like I need a little zentangle time. When I think about what are the creative practices in my toolbox that I love that help me to rest and reflect and connect to that energy of just personal renewal. And art journaling is up there, but zentangle is certainly at the top of my list. We have a couple of other CZTs on the Certified Zentangle teachers on our call this morning that I think would agree that it's such a reliable practice for calming the mind. And so this idea of making space for rest and renewal feels important to me personally today. It's been a very October was just really I'm loving this yellow, kind of an insane month of travel and events. I had 3 different in-person events this month, which was usually one is more than enough. They just all happened to come together. Okay, this brush is really fat, and I'm recognizing that I need to either get a smaller brush or not worry about going over some of these lines. I'm feeling like I'm going to want definitely some markers or gel pens to get into some of these details. I think I was drawn to this yellow for the brightness. It is cold and snowy. We're having our first snow of the season. But when you think about, yes, got sick in there too. You're so right. That was in September when I went to see my dad. My poor dad, 83 years old, and that's 2 years in a row that I went in the fall and got a cold and gave it to my dad. We're going back in a couple of weeks. We're actually going to drive to Texas this time in order to help get him all moved out of his house. And we're moving him to California to be close to my brother. All good stuff, but it's a lot, right? And I'm not the only one. I don't say that because, oh, woe is me. So many of us have so much going on in our lives, right? And how do we change is hard, especially when you're 83 and you've lived in the same state your entire life. And he knows it's the right decision, like this is his choice. I noticed that bear with me, I'm going to refocus my camera here. It's going to look a little funny for a minute. He knows it's the right thing to do, but that doesn't make it easier, right? When we choose the right thing isn't always the easy thing. And so this question of rest, renewal, and reflection feels really important. So when you think about creating something visual, a collage in your journal or a painting, what's the image that comes to mind? Do you like to swing in a hammock? The first image that popped into my mind was sitting in a comfy chair on the beach listening to the waves, or sitting by a mountain river stream listening to the flow of water. So the flow of water for me is very calming. Right. Right, Barbara. It's so true. Good stress is still stress. And there's going to be a lot of grieving that has to happen for him. He's also, one of my brother and I's last ties to Texas as well. Well, I guess my brother still has some of his best friends all still live there, but last of our family ties that we're close to. My dad's been in his house for 30 years. We spread my stepmom's ashes when she passed away he has 40 acres in the Texas Hill Country, beautiful property. So he's leaving that behind. It's a lot, right? And we all have a lot going on, and we have a tendency to push through, right? To just keep going until we can't go anymore. And learning to listen to our bodies, learning to pause. I was having a conversation with one of the women last night, and who had taken some time off from her business. And she said when she did take the time off, that she recognized how close she was to that edge of burnout, right? And we can't see it when we're in the middle of it. And while it's wonderful to have weeks and months of time off and spaciousness and downtime, it doesn't happen that often. In fact, as my husband and I last week were doing some planning, we went to an amazing marketing conference, and then we took an extra day in the hotel in Denver to really integrate. Yeah, right, Jen. You pushed through, you literally broke your heart. Yeah, yeah, so true. And we took a day to integrate and to rest before diving back into everything. And it's like we don't do that enough, but as we were planning, we both realized we've had a lot of family trips and short trips, and we had a daughter graduate from college this year, but we didn't really take a vacation, and certainly not an extended vacation. And so one of our commitments for next year is to take 2 consecutive weeks off. Like we would like to have 4 weeks or maybe 2 consecutive weeks off, and not staycations, but literally where we go somewhere else for a change of pace, right? And how important that is to do that. And yet, all right, that was way too much blue. Culturally, right, we're taught that we put everyone else first, right? That we have to just keep going, that this is the way things are. Okay, this makes a really, really pretty, these two colors together make the prettiest green. So when I think about creating space in my journal to remind me of the need for rest and reflection, the colors of nature definitely pop out. And in my year-long group coaching program, Your Creative Renaissance, is based around what I call the 8 keys of a midlife renaissance. And the most important key, well, they're all equally important, I think, but the one that I find that every woman who comes through the program recognizes that she needs is what I call deep rest. And deep rest is not sleep. Prioritizing a good night's sleep is also at the top of that list. But deep rest is about the absence of input. It's about sitting with your journal, sitting in nature, sitting by yourself in the hammock, in the rocking chair, walking through your garden. It could be gardening, it could be painting, but it's not taking in more information. It's allowing your own mind to just rest. And it's different from meditation, although meditation is another form of deep rest, but many of us with our very busy minds can struggle with sitting meditation. My creative practice is a form of active meditation, walking in nature, cloud gazing, cooking. Like there's so many different ways that we can allow our mind to rest, but the key is to rest with no input, right? No TV on, no music on. I'm addicted to audiobooks, fiction and nonfiction, and to really think about how often our head is filled with input. Drive across town, there's billboards everywhere. You go to the gas station to put gas in your car, and they have little TV screens with news and advertisements on them. You turn on social media for distraction, and don't get me wrong, there's amazing content out there, right? You're tuning in here with me on YouTube on this Thursday morning. It's input. Last 2 weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago, I guess, I met one of my dear friends here locally at a restaurant. We had an early lunch. We each brought a creative project and we just sat, created together in community. We caught up on life and then we just kind of had this shared creative space. So deep rest can be in company, it can be alone. Yeah, right. Barbara says, favorite time of day is sitting in the garden or on my swing and just listening to nature, looking at the birds in the sky. And when I don't have this time, I truly notice it. Yeah, 100%. When I don't get outside for walks often enough, I get really grumpy. When I don't have enough studio time, I get grumpy. Although my friend Leslie says going for a walk with me is like going for a walk with a 3-year-old because I have to stop and look at everything, every bird, the water, pick up rocks and sticks. I need one of those t-shirts that says, make sudden stops on the back. But it's a form of rest for me. It's a form of cultivating awe and wonder and curiosity. And the other thing that I think is so important about this idea of rest and reflection, and one of the other keys of the 8 keys is deep reflection. So much of my work is about deep reflection, and I teach it, but am I making enough time for my own personal deep reflection? It's the opportunity to really ask myself questions, to connect to my heart space, really listen to how my body is feeling. I have another dear friend, Sherry, and when we were still living in Goleta, and Sherry came to visit, and we went down to the beach for a beautiful low tide walk, and we walked the same. Hi, Anne. Hello. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. My husband was just in Canada with his family, right? And so, yeah, the whole world has been watching. But Sherry walks like a 3-year-old too, where she loves to take photographs and get down really close and look at the tide pools. And so sometimes it's about finding the right people that we can rest with. All right, these colors are making me happy, and this is a reminder to me that this is super simple. This is something you can do at home. I'm not here to teach you how to make beautiful heart art. I'm here to show you how easy it can be to use art as that simple space, that opportunity to rest and reflect and renew. And I have different types of practices that serve me differently. My painting practice, I want to make something pretty, right? It's usually pretty meaningful to me, but it has a different focus, right? And me too, sadly. Not, it's not necessarily when I want my reflection time to be. I was awake before 5 this morning, and with the time change here in the United States, I think my body just doesn't quite know what time it is or what's going on. But early mornings are definitely my best time for that deep reflection. And one of my ongoing goals, I have a really solid morning routine that I love and that nourishes and supports me. And I keep saying I need a better evening routine where I rest a little bit more. I usually work on an art project in front of the television and oftentimes fall asleep in front of the TV and then go to bed and sleep more. My husband laughs at me. My evening nap. And making more of an effort to do some of that rest and reflection and lack of input in the evening is something that is often on my mind. Let's see. Bring in a little bit of this pink, a little bit of those, definitely feeling those nature colors. And I'm looking at this thinking about I have a huge collection of, rocks and different stones and different feathers and things that I've collected and seashells, and that how this can become an interactive altar, right? Or a portable altar. I could print out images of things that I could lay down that could go in an envelope while I'm traveling. I have all kinds of fun ideas for how I could use this interactively. Oh, that brush is not going to work. It's all frayed. Nope. I'll find a different brush. I need a smaller brush. Try this one. I'm so hard on my acrylic brushes because I love to really scrub the paint. And I'm using this gouache without adding any water because I want that really, the opacity and the matte, but I'm noticing on this cardstock it doesn't have very much flow to it. So maybe just a little water because I also want to control where it's going on the page. And it's funny, the affirmation on this particular sacred circle is my mind is strong. My mind is strong. Yeah, exactly. Us too. And we enjoy our shows. Like we both have a real passion for story, right? And so we love getting caught up in a series and the story. Okay, this brush isn't really working for me either. What I want is one of my little tiny flat brushes, but they're all on the other side of the studio. All right, I'm going to try this one. So I'm thinking I'm going to want some big bold lines and color. Oh my gosh. Hi, Carol. Great to see you here. I love that idea. And I do that work with people here in my studio where I do intuitive painting on big, large canvases. And I was talking to one of my clients recently, and she's like, I need to fling some paint. Can we cover up the walls so I can fling some paint? But I totally agree. I had one client who was really struggling with emotions and anger, and I had her buy just a piece of foam core, put it on an easel in her garage, and go paint like crazy. It was private out there, but yeah, it feels really good to use our creative practice that way. So many different ways to go. But yeah, splattering paint, big bold brush strokes. So I'm looking at this now and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is ending up being the same colors as my winged heart collage. So there's something about this particular palette of pinks and greens with pops of yellow that my spirit is asking for. And it's funny because these are bright colors. They're like if I were to pick colors that represented rest for me, it would be more blues and subtle greens. And I'm just noticing these vibrant colors feel uplifting today. Okay, I'm going to get this layer of pink down, and then I think I may go grab my poscas off the other table. All right, it's messy, but it is a start. Actually, I can use this Tombow. I'm going to come in and start to clean up the edges a little bit. And what I love about working with designs like this, any kind of mandala design, some of them are quite complex. You know, this one's pretty open and simple, is in order to get these little spaces colored requires an intensity of focus, requires a slowing down. I notice that I tend to hold my breath, and this reminds me to take a breath. So this is a gorgeous sort of teal blue. It's hard to tell on that little bitty piece, but it's really a gorgeous color. Looks like it's a almost dried up color. And I'm wondering, I get impatient sometimes. I'm like, I want to get to the next part. But I'm also wondering, what I love about Tombows is they're just a little bit water soluble. So what if I come in and just blend that a little bit? I'm almost feeling like this is ending up a little too neat and it needs a little bit messy, flowy color on there. Blend those colors. So I love the matte of the gouache. We'll see if that stays put. But what if we just pull some of this color out? Everything is an experiment. The other thing I want to say about making space for rest and renewal is that our best creative ideas come from the space of deep rest and deep reflection, not from action. So often we think we have to do something to have our best. Don't hold your breath with me. That our best creative ideas come when we're doing nothing, right? There's a reason people say, I get my best ideas in the shower or when I'm driving in the car. Often mine will come in the shower or when I'm out for a walk. Brad and I love road trips. And a lot of times we have the time and the space to really talk through things. It's the same reason we like going on long walks together. Okay. My inner child is like, this is taking too long. You're going too slow. I want to go a little faster. Can you move faster, please? And also curiosity about what are these markers going to do? What do I want them to do? I think there's part of this, it's a reminder that, I'm really not in control of anything except my own feelings and emotions, and I have to let go of the rest. All right, it's coming together pretty messy. Definitely feels like it's going to get some collaged thingies on top of it. Um, but my body is feeling grateful for the slow, like intuitive collage can sometimes for me, it's like, oh, there's this and then there's that. And oh, but wait, what about that? And this process is like, slow down, take your time, let go of perfection. I think what I'm feeling is this color was a little bit darker than I wanted to be. I definitely like the little flowy, more watercolor. Let that just kind of flow over there. So I'm sitting here painting and asking myself, where do I want to go next? I got a clear answer about where I want to go next with this. And just like with intuitive collage, or other, all of my painting practice really is just trusting that. It's just paper and paint. Not taking this or myself too seriously in the moment. Let's get that brush nice and dry. Yeah, it's funny. The dryness of the gouache is messy going into these different spaces. So I'm just noticing that. I'm not judging it. It's a supply that I'm still relatively new to, so I have to just be mindful of that. I'm curious what other people do for rest and renewal, or do you have a favorite space that you go? Like Barbara shared, she likes to go into her beautiful garden. Barbara, did you eat the pineapple? I've been loving watching the pineapple journey. But where do you go for deep rest, deep reflection, renewal? We have a lovely little lake nearby our house with picnic tables right at the edge of the lake under the trees. We'll often grab a coffee and take our journals and go sit by the lake and watch the birds and the boats, the kids playing. Another form of deep rest. I love sitting in a coffee shop with my journal. Sometimes what's required for deep rest is to get out of our house, to get out of our normal routine, our normal place. We fall definitely into habits. Some of those habits are supportive and some are not so supportive. Yay, I'm so glad, Barbara. Um, so sometimes what we need is a change of scenery, right? So think about that. If you're struggling with rest and reflection, do you need to go somewhere else? Go sit in a park, go for a drive, get a different perspective. So a fresh perspective can really shed light on things. Okay, this bright blue is making me happy. Like just noticing, like its color is such an important part of our practice as creatives, and it has such an impact on our mood. I think I'm painting in these bright colors because it's so dull outside right now. All right, almost there. And I can sit here and think, oh my gosh, it's been 45 minutes and I haven't gotten very much done. And yet I've gotten a lot done just taking the time to be here with myself, with you. Oh my gosh, Anne, that sounds absolutely amazing. Down here in my basement, I do have big culverts, so I get nice light, but I don't get to see the birds. We have a bird feeder right outside our kitchen table, and I do love to sit and watch the birds. We had a huge flicker, kind of like a woodpecker, in our tree yesterday, checking things out. Now that it's getting cold, I'm sure we'll have different birdies coming to the feeder. We moved the feeder and just a little bit because we had to take some dead branches out of the tree, and it's like it scared the birds off, and we haven't had as many lately. But bird watching is one of those activities that just is so delightful. Watching a butterfly flitter by. We have a lot of bunnies here, watching the bunnies. I'm one of those silent stalkers on social, Barbara, but I have really enjoyed all the stories of your garden and watching your garden evolve and grow. Clearly, such a part of your creative practice, right? It's really beautiful to watch. All right, let's see. Now comes the fun part, and this could take days to come in and just start. We got that base down. I'm just using the end of my paintbrush. It makes great dots. Yep, that's me, silent stalker on social. So when I think about creating a personal altar in my house, right? And if you're not familiar with creating personal altars, right, the idea is that it's just a sacred space for honoring what matters to you. Right now, we're seeing a lot of people creating altars that honor ancestors. You might have one that honors the elements, your connection to the divine, to your faith. And I have multiple altars in my studio. Every shelf holds sweet little precious objects that I've collected or been given that have meaning to me. But sometimes all we need is a candle, right? A little stone. I have my grandfather's beautiful rosary and a set of mala beads. My own spiritual practice is pretty diverse. Okay, this is feeling fun. It's starting to come alive. But for those of us that love to travel, or maybe your space is limited, this can serve as an altar cloth, if you will, right? As a place, as a container to bring those sacred things, and you could do it with pictures or collage, right? There's so many different directions to go with such a simple tool like this. Let's see, I know I saw a white. There it is. So I'm having a vision of finishing this up and then pulling some of the things from my altar, maybe small things that might fit in an Altoid tin, that when I'm traveling I can have something like this with me, and all I have to do is open my journal and play with some of the photographs, images. Maybe there's a picture of a saint or a god or goddess that you really admire that goes in the center, that supports and nourishes and reminds you to stay connected. Maybe you pull an oracle card and pop it in the center. Again, so many of these ideas are inspired by Kristen Radin, and she just has some really fun ways about thinking about how we can create interactive journals and things that can travel with us, right? And I also think it's so often I fill up an art journal and then it just goes in a storage box. And I don't pull it out and look at it very often. This is going to be a fun one to finish up. I'm definitely not going to finish it in one setting. But the practice of working with something this simple, not only is the act itself an act of deep rest and deep reflection, but then the finished design also becomes that space to come back and reflect. So I'm happy with where it's going, trying to let those blue dots dry so that I don't stick my hand in the middle of them and smear them. It's feeling like it wants a little more white in the center. Posca markers were one of those things that definitely changed my creative practice and are one of my favorite tools in the studio, both working on big canvases and small things like this. And even though when it started out, like I felt the messiness of some of the painting, none of that will be noticeable by the time I'm finished with this. I'm looking at it now going, okay, somewhere on here I need some pops of orange. Don't ask me why. And this yellow and this pink of the gouache make a gorgeous, gorgeous orange. When I first went through my soul collage certification with Sina Frost, who's the originator of the process of soul collage, way back in 2012, so it's definitely hard to believe it was that long ago. And I remember her talking about this one card in her deck that was a picture of a fence post that she walked by every morning on her morning walk. And it was her place of deep rest. So, Carol reading about the swing on your back deck, right? Or the one in your front room, having a picture of that you cut out and put into a journal, right, is such a great way of just remembering and honoring that feeling. Like, I don't always get to sit on my deck, but how wonderful is it to just remember what it feels like to sit there? And we can do that so simply by taking a photograph of some of those sacred places, those places of rest, right? So this whole project could be done quite simply. All right, I have a lot of paint on here. I'm like, I don't want to waste this paint, so I'm just going to put it on a piece of paper, just make a few little marks here. It's a beautiful orange. This might get used in collage or tucked into something a little bit later on. Amazing how much paint was on that one little brush. Okay, I want a smaller brush. I'm also making sure that my brush is nice and dry. Apparently this wanted to be orange in the center. And there's something about the simplicity of this. It's a little bit messy, feels a little bit childlike in the designs. And sometimes what we need is simplicity, not complexity. So many of my creative practices, mixed media is a complex practice of adding so many different layers. And sometimes when our brain needs to rest, we need the simple. Another example of that would be fussy cutting, right? The chance to just sit and cut images out. can be one of those soothing activities. So I recommend that in your journal for today about deep rest that you make a list of places and activities. Make a list of places, then activities that are restful, nourishing, and renewing, right? Because we forget. We have access, right? And we forget. All right, it is coming along. It is not complete, but it feels like it's a good start. Where did I put my actual journal? So my vision here is not to drag my journal through the wet paint, but is going to be to cut this out. It's going to be just about the right size for this journal and have it be permanently adhered in here. I'll use the page on the left to make those lists that I just encourage you to make. I'll finish drawing and painting this up, and then to have a little fun interactive play, like how does it change when I set a candle in the center? I don't have all my little tchotchkes. There's always something laying around. So what are the things that are sacred to me? So here's a stone. Here's a pretty little silver star. So all of a sudden it becomes an opportunity to just reflect and play. I've been really into things lately that are very tactile and dimensional. So enjoy the opportunity to create something a little more interactive today in your journal that represents deep rest and renewal for you. And again, you could do that with actual images, you could do it with photographs, but think about how can your journal itself become a holding space for your own rest, reflection, and renewal. As always, thank you everyone so much for joining me live. For those of you watching the replay, thank you. I will be back live with you all again next Tuesday. I hope you have a wonderful, restful weekend, and I will see you all soon. Thank you, everybody.